As the golden hour fades into dusk, you might spot something curious in a garden, a single bee resting completely motionless on a flower petal as the air and the light turn cold. It's easy to look at this tiny creature and assume it made a mistake. Maybe it stayed out too far from the hive and lost its way in the dark. Or maybe it's simply resting after a long day of foraging. For anyone who has ever come home from a punishing day feeling entirely drained, that assumption makes perfect sense. We know exactly what it feels like to hit a wall, to run completely out of energy, and to just want to stop moving. But bees operate under very different biological rules. They are highly social, hive-dependent insects with an impeccable internal navigation system. A worker bee does not accidentally get lost. Staying outside in the chill of the night is a deliberate departure from the hive's social structure. This raises a biological mystery. Why would an insect whose entire survival depends on the collective warmth and protection of the colony actively choose to face the isolation of the night alone? To understand that choice, we have to look past the quiet stillness of the flower and examine the relentless, high-density reality of what it actually means to be a worker bee. This chart breaks down the brief 6-week timeline of a worker bee's life. The first few weeks are strictly internal. They operate as nurses caring for the brood, cleaners maintaining the hive, and attendants to the queen. Then the timeline shifts. For the final phase of their life, they are pushed outside to forage. Zooming into that foraging phase reveals an extreme mathematical imbalance. In a matter of days, a single worker bee will visit thousands of flowers. They log hundreds of miles in flight distance and beat their wings over 100 million times. The total yield for all that physical labor is usually a fraction of a single teaspoon of nectar. That workload extracts a severe physical toll. Weeks of navigating wind and rain leave their bodies battered. Their internal energy reserves deplete, and the delicate edges of their wings begin to permanently fray and tear. When a worker bee reaches this point of physical failure, its role within the colony flips. It no longer brings in enough calories to offset the cost of its own survival, transforming into a resource liability that would consume precious winter stores. This visual represents the highly connected structure of a hive. When an older bee senses its physical limits have been reached, it triggers an evolutionary defense mechanism known as social self-isolation. The failing bee severs its connection to the group. Staying away from the hive is a survival strategy for the collective. This isolation prevents potential pathogens from entering the tight quarters of the colony and safeguards the energy stores the younger bees need to survive the coming winter. That brings us back to the bee resting alone in the dark. It endures the dropping temperatures and the heavy morning dew, entirely unprotected. But sometimes it survives the night. When the sun rises, something remarkable happens. If the insect has any remaining strength, it bathes in the sunlight to warm its muscles. It vibrates its torn wings, generating just enough heat to prepare for what entomologists call the final flight. It takes to the air to gather one last microgram of nectar or pollen. It flies out into the field even though it no longer possesses the physical capacity to make the return trip home. By continuing until the physical mechanism of flight literally fails, the bee extracts every possible microgram of value for the colony. It remains in the field until its biological battery reaches zero. This behavior creates a specific kind of biological efficiency. The bee removes itself from the social fabric of the hive at the exact moment it can no longer contribute to it, preventing the burden of its own decay from affecting the group. This graphic shows how that single act of self-isolation scales up. What starts with one failing insect multiplies exponentially across global agricultural fields. Through the relentless, invisible labor of these dying bees, an entire worldwide ecosystem is maintained. Exactly 1/3 of a global food plate is entirely dependent on this unseen process. The harvests we depend on, the vegetables in our markets, and the fruits on our tables exist because millions of insects work until their wings fail, and then move aside so the next generation can continue the cycle. The next time you are walking in the evening and notice a motionless bee resting on a flower in the fading light, do not disturb it. Recognize that you are looking at a tiny laborer finishing its final day. There is a perspective to be found in that stillness. Much of the world is held together by these microscopic, anonymous contributions,
labor that is never seen, never thanked, and yet utterly essential to the survival of the whole. A life defined by this level of persistence leaves its mark not in the hive, but in the landscape. The fruits and flowers of the next season are the physical evidence of that final solitary flight.